Viewers, welcome to the Personal Injury Law Show. This show that talks about everything current in the law of personal injuries and pertinent to you, the viewer. My name's Tony Carbone. With me tonight I've got Don Maffia, a partner in the law firm. Good evening, Don.
Good evening, Tony. Good evening, viewers.
And Aki Munir, she's a transport accident lawyer in the law firm. Good evening, Aki.
Good evening, Tony. Hello, viewers.
Tonight, viewers, we're going to be giving you an update on transport accident law. We've got some very interesting cases, so stay tuned for those.
But first, Tony, let's talk about what's in the news.
Don, viewers, there's been some sensational stories in the news. We've had bushfires that have been raging out of control.
Yep.
We've had maniacs that have assaulted and killed people. We've had armed robberies that are out of control. We've got Julian Knight trying to get out of jail. It's just been absolutely extraordinary. But the first story, Don, is a young driver who failed to wear his prescription glasses and ran over a pedestrian and killed the pedestrian. Aki, tell us a bit more about this case.
Tony, what happened in this case is there was a young driver who, in Adelaide, ran over a pedestrian while failing to wear his glasses. Look, I'm not quite sure about this one because we don't know the full circumstances of the story. We don't know how reliant he was on these glasses and whether or not he could actually see without them.
Well, Don, his excuse to the court now to say I didn't intend to kill the pedestrian was I didn't have my glasses.
Yep.
They were prescription glasses.
Well, it was conditioned on his licence that he wear glasses. And he didn't wear glasses because I think he felt embarrassed by wearing glasses. And I think he also told his optometrist not long before the accident that he couldn't see at night. So this guy shouldn't be on the road without his glasses. I mean, it's a reason why it's a condition on your licence. He's pleaded guilty and now he's just obviously waiting for the sentence, and we haven't heard about the sentence. But look, unfortunately, in his case, I mean, he's done it. He should have done it. He could have avoided it.
Aki, he's only 22 years of age. There was no intent to kill. However, without the glasses, we know what the result is. Look, I'm not sure what I'd do with this case. I mean, as remorseful and as sad as it is, I think you're probably going to have to give him some jail time. What do you think, Don?
Well, I think if he's... depends on what the judges think, but he might be getting a few years under his belt, unfortunately, in jail because of failing to do one simple thing, wear your glasses.
I'm really not sure what the court will do with this, but we'll come back to this story because he's still got to be sentenced. The next story is a very interesting one. This is high-tech stuff going on here, Aki. Google Glass driving charge dismissed. Do you know what Google Glass driving is?
I recently found out what
All right,
Google Glass driving is.
Tell us what it is.
Well, Google Glasses are a device that are worn sort of like glasses, but it's got all the technology involved, so it's got a video camera and you can surf the internet from what I understand.
And listen to this. It's like, picture these glasses, viewers, and in the corner you can watch the internet, you can actually do things with them, but you're also supposed to be watching the road. Don, is it possible to be doing all of that and paying attention on the road?
It's a distraction, isn't it? I mean, this is a device that's been introduced and I think it's been trialled, whereby by voice command you can be watching internet, searching internet, by voice command on your glasses. That is a distraction on the road. There's enough on the road to watch out for. We don't need something else to add on and distract people away from what they should be doing, and that is driving and keeping care.
Don, I reckon this is just another way of killing people on the road. If they pass this, and if this gets a Guernsey on our roads, I reckon it's just as bad, if not worse, than a mobile phone. What do you think, Aki?
Oh, definitely. It's like watching a movie while you're trying to drive. It's just not possible.
And I think Google Glasses too, Tony, just brings in a whole range of issues. I mean, you talk about privacy. You can be walking down the street and being filmed by someone, you don't even know about it.
Exactly.
You don't know how it's being used. If it's put on the internet, downloaded on Facebook or your whatnots, it's viral. So I don't...
But let me say this. The reason why this particular woman in San Diego had her case thrown out is not because she was watching the Google Glass. She said that it was switched off, so the courts don't like it already.
Yeah.
The courts do not like it.
The voice command just say switch
Look,
off and it switches
we'll
off.
We'll come back to this because it's high-tech, cutting edge. We'll look into it in the future. The one-punch laws in New South Wales, I think it's a great innovation by the government of New South Wales. Don, tell us a bit more about
Well,
it.
this is where New South Wales have introduced a bill, which I think is passed their lower house, whereby someone who's guilty of a one-punch killing, really, they got a mandatory 8-year jail term. It tells the judges that if someone's guilty of this offence, they're in jail for 8 years.
I think that's good. What do you think, Aki?
I'm not comfortable with mandatory sentencing. I think each case should be looked at based on the circumstances, and all mitigating factors should be taken into account.
All right, Aki, let me put this to you. Do you think that severity of sentences has an effect on how people behave in society?
Well, I don't think that all people think about the sentence before they commit an act, and I think a lot of people aren't actually aware of what sentences are out there.
Well, I mean, it's highly publicised, isn't it, Don? That, you know, one-punch killings, we've had so many in the last, say, 2 to 3 years in particular. I mean, what about the families of the people that are deceased
Of course.
and or seriously injured or incapacitated?
My question is, OK, well, you serve an 8-year mandatory service on a jail term on a person who's the defendant or the assailant. But how about the people that have been feeding this person with alcohol, drinking at their venues and letting them go out and causing these injuries? Why aren't we penalising those? Why aren't we penalising the bars, the clubs?
Don, that comes back to policing of the liquor licensing laws.
Yeah.
You know, maybe there should be more people from the Liquor Licensing Commission in the bars just to observe, maybe at random to see if they're doing the right thing when it comes to alcohol serving, responsible service of alcohol.
That's right. These are all after that they've spent time in the venue drinking alcohol and then get out in the street and they have a fight and one punch leads to a death. I reckon you're right. I think we've got to go back to where it starts. And we've got to start looking at these liquor licences. We've got to start looking at these venues and try and prevent it getting to the stage that it does it, killing someone, which is just terrible.
That's it. By the way, did you watch the In Excess show? Michael Hutchins got a one punch in Germany when he was with Helena Christensen. Lost his sense of smell and taste. So even if you do survive, it's amazing what effect it has on injured people. And just lastly, before we go to a break, there's a story about the outdoor workers facing an increased cancer risk.
Yeah.
That's sort of stating the obvious, isn't it, Aki?
Being outdoor for long periods of time, there's obviously a lot of UV exposure and people should be aware of the risks.
Don, sunscreen, hats.
That's right.
As a
Just
bare
wear your
minimum.
sunscreen and hats as a bare minimum.
Yep,
So
yep.
this is for your labourers, carpenters, builders and all that. Just be careful, man. You get out in the sun all day, that's a risk. You can get cancer from it.
Exactly. Viewers, we've got to go to a break, but all the stories we've touched on are very topical. So give us your Facebook comments, give us your Twitter comments, go to the website and stay tuned for our follow-ups on these stories. Viewers, welcome back to the show. Before the break, I told you we'd bring you up to date with some transport accident cases. But before that, Aki and Don, I want to touch on what's been going on in our court system. There's been a lot of jury trials, that is, viewers, where a case is heard by a judge and a jury of 6. Now, the last 5 cases, Don, have been lost. In other words, the poor plaintiff has failed to get a result. Aki, let me ask you this. What do you think that there's a bit of bias out there? Why would these plaintiffs be losing? The lawyers surely couldn't have got it wrong every time.
No, I don't think that's the case, Tony. I mean, people in society don't really understand civil law. I think it's much more complicated than, for example, a criminal trial, and the elements a lot more complex. So I think it's harder for the jury to actually understand what's required to win these cases.
Don, I believe personally that the defendants play on the prejudices and emotions of the jury. They get highly skilled technicians who are QCs, highly trained in their fields, cross-examining very, very basic individuals that are not in high-paid jobs. They've probably dropped out of school very young, and they absolutely chop them up in the witness box.
Yeah, look, Tony, I think I agree with Aki. I mean, these cases go before the jury. There's a reason why they go before jury. They couldn't resolve them before it gets to court, and they involve complex issues. And it's just unfortunate, one of those things where you go before 6 of your peers. I mean, they're not doctors, not lawyers, they're just your lay people out there. And could be some prejudice, couldn't be, we just don't know, Tony. Look, juries don't give reasons.
And viewers,
so you don't know what they're thinking.
When these QCs in particular start cross-examining, they're relentless. They're at them consistently. They keep repeating the same questions in different words. And sadly, a lot of these people come across as being evasive or that they're not telling the truth. And it plays on the prejudices and biases of the jurors. Do you believe that, Aki?
Oh, yeah, that's right, no doubt. These QCs, they look into the background, the history of this person, and they bring up things that just aren't relevant.
And unlike the criminal law, Dom, where a lot of the stuff, a person's background cannot be brought in to question, in a civil trial, you'll find that they're bringing up things that happened 30 years ago.
Oh, look, it has to be relevant, of course. But yeah, a lot of these questions that go before the jury are to assess a person's damages, which is based on their medical condition. So that just brings into play everything that happened in their medical past, Tony. So, I mean, like these days in litigation, a lot of times we're finding that the defendants are calling for Medicare printouts, which goes back to whenever go 10 years to find out which doctor you've gone to look at any previous conditions that could be used against you.
But Don, why would things like someone's criminal history 20 years ago be relevant to someone that was injured in a car accident or work accident trying to get their damages assessed today?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I don't necessarily agree, but Tony, it's all about credibility in the end. Half the battle of these cases is to be believed. If you're not believed and your credibility is impugned, unfortunately, you're going to lose your case.
All right. Is any person out there that, in your opinion, Aki, hasn't got some skeleton in their closet?
No, that's right. Everyone's got a medical history, a medical past. It might be a slight twitch in the back, and that's brought up and played on by QCs.
So, in effect, what it means is if someone's got anything in their background that could hurt you, a defendant will use it to their advantage, and it generally does hurt you because you'll find that these plaintiffs can't explain themselves.
I think the way around it, Tony, is disclosure.
Yeah,
Time
look,
at the start, it's there, there's no relevance to it, move on.
We've got the Juries Commissioner coming on in due course, I hope.
Yep. I think
and maybe we can start throwing some questions around. I think we're the last state in Australia that has a jury, judge and jury system in civil cases done, and Aki. So it could be a thing of the past, who knows? But anyway, let's move on. Actually, viewers, send us your comments on this. It's a very interesting topic. Let's talk about this case involving this poor bloke that has crossed the road, gone to court, lost his case, went on appeal, went back to court. We'll let the facts unfold. Give us the facts, Aki.
Well, basically, in 2004, what happened is Mr Gue, the plaintiff in this case, was crossing the road, Springvale Road, and another vehicle heading straight hit him. And it was dark, it was night, it was raining, so visibility was poor. And basically the evidence was contested as to the state of the lights at the time of the accident.
All right. Don, tell us about the state of the road. How many lanes were there?
Okay, there was 4 lanes in the southern direction. He crossed, there was 1 right-hand turning lane and 3 straight lanes, and also I think a slip lane for the left lane. So he was crossing from the medium strip facing the southern way, and he crossed the right-hand turning lane and gets to the second lane, and that's where he gets hit by Mr Weston.
So the lane that was turning right, he managed to negotiate that without any issues?
Yep.
He gets to the second lane, which is cars going straight, is that correct?
That's correct.
And he gets cleaned up?
Gets cleaned up by Mr Weston.
Okay. Nasty injuries. He sustained nasty injuries, didn't he,
That's
Aki?
right, yes.
Okay. There was a lot of debate about the evidence in this case as to the colour of the lights, who had the red light,
Yep.
whether there's a green man for him to cross the road. What transpired, Aki? Tell us a bit more about it.
Well, actually, Tony, I believe that the evidence in regards to the pedestrian light was uncontested and it was proven that they were actually red. What was contested is whether or not the lights to go straight were green.
If the lights were red, why would the driver be accountable for his injuries?
Well, this is right. So the two witnesses. So the driver of the vehicle that hit Mr Gui, and there was also a third-party witness, independent witness. Mr Weston, the defendant, said that he was stopped at the red light, lights turned green for him, and he moved forward and hit Mr Gui.
And what the independent witness say?
Independent witness say that actually they're all stationary at the lights, red light. The lights turned for the vehicles or traffic turning right, turned green. Mr Weston moved forward, meaning against the red light, and that's when he hit Mr Gui.
So in effect, the jury were accepting the driver's version of events.
Yes, well, we don't know because jury's not required to give a reason, but essentially the problem with the independent witness's evidence was that, one, it was very inconsistent. When she made a statement 5 years after the accident, mind you, this accident happened in 2005, Tony. The trial was heard in 2013 after 4 goes. So the evidence from the independent witness was inconsistent in the sense that she said it was raining, she got the direction wrong that she was travelling in, she was a passenger, mind you. She couldn't tell which road she was on, very inconsistent. And then when it was put to her under cross-examination, you actually didn't see the lights go green. She said, no, I saw some sort of reflection out of the box of the lights.
Well,
So
why wouldn't she have refreshed her memory, got the statement she gave back when the accident occurred, refreshed her memory as to what actually happened, and then give evidence?
Well, this is why when she gave a statement, it was in 2009, 5 years after the accident.
Okay.
So even the memory is a bit...
We've got to go to a sponsors break, viewers. Please stay tuned. We'll be back to the facts of this case shortly. Viewers, welcome back to the show. We're talking about this case of Gui and Weston. Now, Don, the plaintiff lost in the first instance.
Yes.
Went to the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal basically found that because the judge's charge was confusing, apart from other things,
Yep.
the matter should be retried.
Correct.
Goes back to retrial, Aki. Before another judge and jury, what happened this time?
Well, basically, they found that Mr Gui was 85% responsible for the accident and the driver was 15% responsible.
So in effect, viewers, Mr Gui was found to have 85% contributory negligence. Don, this is notwithstanding the fact that the independent witness said that when he started to cross the road, mind you, his car had broken down. He's trying to get help because his car had broken down.
Yep.
Independent witness said the light had gone green for cars turning right,
Yep.
but it was still red for cars going straight.
Yep.
The independent witness said that.
Which meant that Mr Weston or defendant would have
Should have
gone
been
through red light.
stopped.
Or who would have gone through red light
Yes.
to hit Mr Gui. That's correct. But it just sounds like the jury didn't accept the independent witness's evidence because there's so many inconsistencies. It was just at the end of the day, you couldn't put enough reliance and they must have just accepted what the defendant said over the independent
So in
witness.
effect, they've discounted, no, it gets worse than that. They've discounted what the plaintiffs had to say, they've discounted what the independent witness has to say, and they've accepted the version of the defendant who had a stake in the case.
That's correct.
I find that extraordinary.
Well, in terms of look, I mean, Mr Gui did win his case, but his damages were reduced by 85%. In monetary terms, he got $250,000 for pain and suffering, a further $232,000 for pecuniary loss, and then, of course, he reduced it by 85%, so he only got $65,000.
And he's had 2 trials, and then this went on appeal, Aki.
That's right.
And the Court of Appeal threw it out again.
That's right. They upheld the jury's verdict.
So
Tony,
Mr Gui got nothing.
Mr Gui's plight started in 2010 and it just finished late last year, 2013. So it's a long, drawn-out litigation process.
Viewers, you don't see the harsh realities of civil litigation. Sadly, we see it every day. If you're in Mr Goo's shoes, who has got serious injuries, don't?
Well,
Aki?
his damages are $500,000.
It's very tragic that he's walked out with no money, and in fact, he's probably out of pocket, being realistic.
I would have thought so.
Let's go to the next case, Woodley and TAC. Give us the facts of this one, Aki.
Yeah, so in this case, a woman was killed and her daughter was injured when a horse strayed from a nearby paddock onto a highway. The husband was driving, hit the horse, and obviously tragic circumstances.
What happened with the court, Don?
All right, so this is a recovery proceeding, Tony. So this is where the TAC's paid out the damages to the the beneficiaries and also the husband of the lady who was killed. So this is where TAC are recovering from a third party for that damages that was paid, but in addition for any future ongoing payments made to the injured parties. So what happened in this case was that they named the occupier of the land, sorry, the owner of the land, which was a grape growing company, but also they named the occupier of a rental property which abutted the paddock where the horse was staying.
So he was looking after the horse?
He wasn't looking after the horse, he just happened to be living on that. It's part of a big parcel of land, but part of the land, not directly there or anything. So it wasn't really the occupier of that paddock, but he was a neighbour pretty much. That's what he was. So they named after they've gone after the owner of the land, and also they argue was the occupier as well, Tony. And they found that first instance, they found that the company was 90% responsible, 90%, and Brendan, who was the occupier, was 10% responsible.
Now, there was some conjecture about whether the latch on the fence worked, didn't work, whether it was adequate to protect road users. What come of that, Aki? Nothing.
Well, pretty much this went to the Court of Appeal, and the court found that there was no problems with the latch, and the company basically did everything they had to do to make sure that those horses were kept in the paddock.
Okay. Don, is it fair to say that when you're the owner of a parcel of land, you've got a very high duty of care? It's what they call a non-delegable duty of care, which means what?
Well, it pretty much means you just can't pass the buck to someone else. You are solely responsible for making sure that if you're just horses, you've got animals, horses, but in a highway, there's a high risk that if they escape, it's going to cause a lot of horrific injuries and in this case, even cause death.
Can I take it one step further, Aki? Assuming you own a parcel of land and someone goes and puts their animals in there, let's say they had just a horse or goats or sheep, and your fences aren't up to scratch, I'd go so far as to say that if one of those animals escape and cause injury, you as the owner of the land, notwithstanding the fact that you haven't given permission for them to put their livestock on the property, you'd still be held responsible. That's my view, based on the law as it currently stands.
Look, Tony, if you've got animals on land but in a highway, there is a very high risk that if they get out, they're going to cause a lot of injury. So,
but what I'm saying is you as the owner of the land will be held accountable. Don, you're in the Transport Accident Department. What should people do if they're stuck in any circumstances?
Like we always say, Tony, call a lawyer, get some advice, get some expert advice about your entitlements, your rights. Because, Tony, at the start of your case is the most important part of your case. So you need to get the advice straight away. So get all the evidence, preserve the evidence, and you can prosecute your case as effectively as possible.
And Aki, preferably someone that practices in transport accident law.
That's right, it's quite complex and the laws are changing every day, so you need someone updated with the laws and knows what they're talking about.
Don, Aki, before we go, I want to get back to this Google Glass thing we were talking about at the start of the show. You know, tell us a bit more about it. It's a little gadget in the corner of your glasses, is it, Don?
Yeah, that's correct. So it's, as I understand, I haven't seen one, Tony, but it's with glasses where by voice command, you pretty much can surf the net, film, access Google pretty much.
What? In the corner of your eye?
Yeah, in the corner of your eye.
So effectively, your eye's got to be looking at that and the road at the same time?
Pretty much.
Is that possible, Aki? I mean, can your brain work like that?
Oh, look, I highly doubt it, and that's the reason why we don't have DVD players or TVs in our cars while we're driving unless they're in the back seat. So, yeah, it's just, I don't think it's possible.
I reckon Google should be prosecuted for putting people in a situation where they can cause accidents.
But where does it stop, Tony? I mean, mobile phones are a distraction. iPhone's a distraction. I mean, you've got GPS systems that you put on your windscreen that's a distraction as well. I mean, where does it end?
I know, but I'm saying I just think that this is at another level. I mean, you've got glasses, they're designed for a purpose so you can see where you're going, and all of a sudden this thing's in the corner of your eye. I just reckon it's a massive, massive distraction.
Oh, look, that is, Tony. I mean, anything on the road other than looking at the road is a distraction. I mean, you can look at your phones, even put on the radio, change the CDs, change the stations, anything like that. That's a distraction. So, look, I agree with you, Tony, but where does it end?
Where does commerce stop and safety begin? That's the other thing.
I think when they first introduced the radio in the car, that's when it stopped.
Aki, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Tony.
Don, thanks for coming on the show as usual.
Thanks, Tony.
Viewers, go to the website, go to Facebook, go to Twitter, go back to our past episodes, stay tuned for future episodes, and always remember to stay safe.